Hey everyone, welcome back. You ready to dive into some serious election speculation?
Always ready for that.
Today we're tackling the potential 2024 showdown.
A big one.
Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump.
Buckle up, everybody.
And we don't just skim the surface here.
Oh, no, we go deep.
We've got some analysis that digs into their strengths, weaknesses, and, those less obvious factors.
The kind of things you don't always think about.
That could totally swing the election.
Absolutely.
Those hidden currents?
Right. So it's not just about who's ahead in the polls right now.
It's so much more than that.
It's about understanding the forces at play.
The undercurrents. The things that are really driving this whole thing.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
You're going to learn a lot today.
I know. I already am. So
let's get into it.
Let's start with the big picture.
Yeah.
What's fascinating to me is that this isn't just about red versus blue.
It's way bigger than that.
What do you think?
I think this election is like a mirror reflecting some really deep anxieties in society.
Oh, I like that. A mirror.
Yeah, anxieties and questions about where America's headed.
Like, what's our identity now?
Right.
What are our values?
Exactly. All of that swirling around this election.
Okay, so big picture stuff. But let's get down to the candidates themselves.
Let's do it.
First up, Kamala Harris.
A historic figure.
Absolutely. You can't deny the historical significance here. First female VP, first woman of color in that role.
Breaking barriers.
Talk about shattering glass ceilings.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And it definitely resonates with a large and diverse electorate.
For sure, especially younger voters, women, minority groups.
Right. They see themselves in her.
And that's powerful. But to win, she needs to broaden that appeal, right?
Absolutely. She's got to connect with a wider range of voters.
Okay, so historical significance is on her side.
For sure.
And she's got some built-in advantages as the incumbent VP, right?
Oh, yeah.
Access resources, the whole political machine behind her.
The power of the incumbency.
But then there are those approval ratings.
Ah, yes. Those haven't been great.
What's the source saying about that?
Yeah. Well, the analysis points to criticism from both sides of the aisle, actually.
Both sides, really?
Yeah, particularly surrounding her handling of immigration and border issues.
It's a tough spot to be in when you're trying to solidify your own leadership image.
It really is.
And I gotta ask, there are whispers about a perceived lack of leadership.
Yeah, I've heard those too.
Is there any truth to that, or is it just political maneuvering?
It's hard to say. It's a mix of both, probably.
But how do we separate the reality from the spin?
Well, I think it's important to look at her whole record.
Okay. Her experience.
She was a senator for years.
Right.
And she's been involved in key decisions within the Biden administration.
She's definitely been in the room where it happens.
Yeah. But the election will likely hinge on whether voters see her as a capable leader.
In her own right. Separate from Biden?
Exactly. Can she step out of that shadow?
That's a really good point. Speaking of shadows, can she keep the progressive wing of the Democratic Party happy?
That's another big challenge.
They can be a tough crowd.
They're definitely a force to be reckoned with.
And they were crucial for Biden's win in 2020.
Absolutely. Our source material dives into the progressive wing's growing influence within the Democratic Party.
So their support is crucial for Harris.
It is. But here's the catch. She'll need to balance their demands with the need to appeal to a broader, more moderate electorate.
It's a tightrope walk.
It really is. And the stakes are high.
Okay, so tightrope walk for Harris. Got it. Now let's switch gears to Donald Trump.
The man of the hour? Or perhaps the man of the last 4 years?
Love him or hate him, he's a force in American politics.
No doubt about it.
And he's back for round 2.
Round 2, the rematch.
What does our deep dive tell us about his staying power?
Well, the source highlights how Trump's appeal isn't just about personality.
It goes deep.
Much deeper. It taps into feelings of economic anxiety and cultural identity.
For a specific segment of America?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think conservative voters, evangelical Christians.
Working class folks who feel left behind.
The people who feel like the system isn't working for them.
That makes sense. And remember how he played the economic prosperity card so well in 2016?
Oh yeah, that was a winning message.
Could he pull that off again in 2024?
That's the big question. The state of the economy in 2024 will be huge.
So if the economy is thriving,
it could benefit the incumbent party.
Advantage Harris.
But if we see a downturn or a recession, things could get interesting.
Interesting how?
The source actually suggests that a struggling economy could actually benefit Trump's campaign.
Really?
It might sound counterintuitive.
It does.
But it plays into his whole outsider coming to fix things narrative.
Right. It's like the worse things get, the better it is for him.
Almost like he thrives on that chaos.
And let's be real, the man is a media genius.
Oh, he knows how to work the media.
Whether it's good or bad attention, he knows how to command the spotlight.
He's a master of that.
You're absolutely right. The source points to Trump's mastery of media, especially in the age of social media.
He knows how to use it to his advantage.
He can dominate news cycles and connect directly with his supporters.
In a way that other politicians just can't.
But here's the counterpoint.
Yes, there's always a counterpoint.
He's also got those legal challenges hanging over him.
Right. Let's not forget about those.
We're talking about the January 6th Capitol riot investigations, the classified documents case.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Does our source say how much damage this could do?
The analysis argues that these legal issues could seriously derail his campaign.
Seriously derail? Wow.
They raise serious questions about his judgment, his respect for the rule of law.
Ultimately, his fitness for office.
Exactly.
Okay, so potential legal trouble for Trump.
That's a real wild card.
But on the flip side, his supporters seem to love how he's a total disruptor.
They love that he shakes things up.
Does our source address that us against them mentality he cultivates?
Oh, absolutely. It's a key part of his appeal, especially for his base.
Oh, it works for him.
It does. But as the source points out, his polarizing nature is a double-edged sword.
How so?
While it energizes his base, it also alienates a significant portion of the electorate, especially those moderate voters who can swing elections.
Right. Those swing voters are crucial.
They are.
Yeah.
And they're often turned off by extreme rhetoric.
Okay, so he needs to energize his base without alienating too many moderates.
It's a delicate balance.
It really is. Okay, one last thought on Trump.
Go for it.
He'd be the oldest president ever if elected.
That's true.
Does he have the stamina for another term?
That's a legitimate question.
What does the source say?
The source raises this as a real concern. The presidency is incredibly demanding, both physically and mentally.
No doubt about it.
Voters will have to weigh whether at his age he has the stamina and resilience for the job.
It's a fair question. So we've tackled the candidates. Now let's zoom out to the bigger picture.
The bigger picture.
Besides the candidates themselves, what other factors could make or break this election?
Oh, there are so many.
Our source points to some pretty interesting X factors, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like what? Yeah.
We're talking about the economy, voter turnout, and even Biden's performance as president.
Which could affect Harris's chances.
Absolutely. It's all connected.
Okay, so a lot more to unpack here. I'm already feeling like this election is going to be a nail-biter.
Oh, it's going to be close.
But before we get into those X factors,
Those wild cards.
let's take a moment to recap what we've learned so far,
Good idea.
just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay, so here's what we've got so far.
Lay it on us.
We've seen that both Harris and Trump have a potential path to victory, but it's far from guaranteed.
Nothing certain.
Both candidates have a dedicated base of support,
Those core voters.
but they'll need to win over those undecided voters,
Those swing voters.
especially in those key swing states we'll be diving into soon.
Oh yeah, those swing states are going to be crucial battleground.
Absolutely. They could make or break this election.
And we can't forget about those external factors we've been talking about. The economy, voter turnout, and the looming presence of Biden's legacy.
All those things could tip the scales.
Exactly. And as we get closer to 2024, things will definitely shift and evolve.
The political landscape is constantly changing.
New challenges and opportunities will emerge.
Both campaigns will have to adapt and adjust their strategies accordingly.
It's going to be fascinating to watch it all unfold.
I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me neither. But before we get too carried away with predictions,
Hold your horses.
our source emphasizes the importance of individual action.
What can we do?
What does that mean for our listeners specifically?
It means that you, our listeners, have a crucial role to play in this election.
We all have a part to play.
It's more important than ever to stay informed and engage in thoughtful discussions about the issues.
Don't just be a bystander.
Don't just passively consume information. Be an active participant.
So don't just scroll through social media and take everything at face value.
Do your own research.
We're encouraging our listeners to be more proactive, right?
Exactly. Dig a little deeper. Form your own opinions.
Don't let other people think for you.
This election isn't a spectator sport. You have a voice, and your vote is your most powerful tool.
I love that. It's about taking ownership of your role in the democratic process.
Absolutely.
And that brings us back to the bigger picture, right?
The big picture.
This isn't just about choosing a president. It's about shaping the future direction of the country.
It's about our collective future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So, as we move closer to 2024, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder.
A question to ponder.
I like it.
Given the historical significance of both candidates,
Both of them.
Harris as the first woman and person of color potentially holding the office,
Breaking barriers.
and Trump as the first president to seek a second term after losing a re-election bid,
Unprecedented.
How might this election reshape the American political landscape for years to come?
That's the million-dollar question.
It really is. So much to think about.
I'm excited to see how it all plays out.
Me too. But for now, we'll leave you with that question to ponder.
Ponder away, everybody.
We'll be back soon with more deep dives into the 2024 election.
Stay tuned. See you then. Okay, I'm definitely feeling more engaged, but also a little overwhelmed by all the factors at play. Where do we even begin to unpack the rest of this?
Oh, we could zoom in on those swing states you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah, those crucial battlegrounds.
Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin.
They were key to Biden's win in 2020.
They were. But our source suggests Trump could still be a contender in those areas.
You're saying they might not be as solidly blue as we think?
Right. It's not a given.
What makes them so unpredictable?
Well, think of them as like microcosms of the national political divide.
Okay, little snapshots of the whole country.
Exactly. You've got urban areas that tend to vote Democratic.
Right.
And rural areas that are more Republican.
So the real battleground is...
The suburbs.
It's all about winning the hearts and minds of suburban soccer moms and dads.
Pretty much. There are concerns about things like the economy, education, safety. Those could be decisive.
Okay, suburbs equals key battlegrounds. Got it. Now let's talk about voter turnout, which our source says is going to be super important.
Oh yeah, turnout is always key.
Especially among certain groups.
Right, certain demographics.
Can you break that down for us?
Sure. The source dives into how younger voters, minority groups, and women are essential for Democratic victories.
Okay.
But they historically have lower voter turnout rates.
Compared to?
Older white voters who tend to favor Republicans.
So if Harris can energize and mobilize those groups,
Especially in those swing states?
it could really boost her chances.
Absolutely. Think of it this way. If those groups show up in record numbers, it could change the entire electoral map.
Wow. So voter turnout equals huge potential impact. All right, now let's talk about the elephant, or maybe I should say the donkey in the room.
Biden.
How much will his performance as president impact Harris's campaign?
Even if she tries to forge her own path.
Right. It's her own campaign, but she's also tied to him.
It's a tricky situation. Our source suggests it's inevitable that Harris will be judged, at least in part, on the successes and failures of the Biden administration.
So she can't completely escape his shadow.
It's hard to separate the two.
What's the best strategy for her then?
Well, she'll need to find that sweet spot.
Between what?
Embracing the positives of the Biden administration,
Okay, highlight the wins.
but also distancing herself from anything that could be seen as a liability.
The not so good stuff.
Exactly. It's like she's walking a tightrope.
Again with the tightrope. Yeah.
Embrace the good distance from the bad, all while trying to establish herself as her own leader.
That's a tough balancing act.
It is. If the public feels like the Biden administration has been successful, it could boost Harris.
Right, coattails effect.
But if there's widespread dissatisfaction, it could hurt her, even if she tries to distance herself.
No.
It's a tricky situation.
Okay, so we've got swing states, voter turnout, the Biden factor. It's a lot to keep track of. This election is shaping up to be a real nail-biter.
Oh, it's going to be close.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
And we haven't even touched on the potential for unforeseen events.
Oh, yeah. Those curveballs.
A major international crisis, a sudden economic downturn.
Or even, dare I say it, another pandemic.
Oh, man, don't even go there. But you're right, those curveballs can totally change the game.
They can shift the entire landscape.
Okay, so much to think about. Let's take a step back and recap what we've learned so far. Just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Good idea. Recap time.
So far, we've established that both Harris and Trump have a shot at winning.
But neither one has a guaranteed path to victory.
It's still anyone's game.
They both have their loyal supporters, but they'll need to win over those undecided voters.
Especially in those swing states we discussed.
Those are going to be key battlegrounds.
And we can't forget about those external factors we've been talking about. The economy, voter turnout, and Biden's performance. All of those could have a major impact on the election.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as we get closer to 2024, things will definitely shift and evolve.
It's a dynamic process.
New challenges and opportunities will pop up, and both campaigns will have to adapt their strategies.
It's going to be fascinating to watch it all unfold.
I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me neither. But before we get too carried away with predictions, our source emphasizes the importance of individual action.
What can we do to make a difference?
What does that mean for our listeners specifically?
It means that you, our listeners, have a crucial role to play in this election.
We're not just spectators.
It's more important than ever to stay informed and engage in thoughtful discussions about the issues.
Don't just passively consume information.
Be an active participant. Don't just scroll through social media and take everything at face value.
We're encouraging our listeners to be more proactive, right?
Exactly. Dig a little deeper. Do your own research and form your own opinions.
Don't let other people think for you.
This election isn't a spectator sport. You have a voice, and your vote is your most powerful tool.
I love that. It's about taking ownership of your role in the democratic process.
Absolutely.
And that brings us back to the bigger picture, right?
The big picture.
This isn't just about choosing a president. It's about shaping the future direction of the country.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we move closer to 2024, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder.
A question to ponder. I like it. Given the historical significance of both candidates.
Both of them. Breaking barriers and setting precedents.
Harris as the first woman and person of color potentially holding the office.
A truly historic possibility.
And Trump as the first president to seek a second term after losing a re-election bid.
Uncharted territory.
How might this election reshape the American political landscape for years to come?
That's the question we all need to be thinking about. The stakes are high and the implications are far-reaching.
Whoa, that's a huge GE question you just dropped on us. You're right, this election has the potential to be a major turning point in American politics, no matter who wins.
It really does. Think about it. If Harris wins, it could completely change people's ideas about who can hold power in this country. You know?
Yeah, like it could be incredibly inspiring for a whole new generation of, female and minority leaders.
Exactly. It's about representation. Seeing someone who looks like you in a position of power. That's powerful.
It's like breaking down those barriers once and for all.
And not just in politics either, I think.
Right. I can already imagine the ripple effects across all areas of society.
Absolutely. It could lead to a surge in political engagement, too.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, think about it. More people from those underrepresented groups might feel empowered to run for office, to get involved in the process.
To make their voices heard.
Right. And that's a good thing for democracy. The more diverse perspectives we have in government, the better.
I agree. So it's not just about Harris as an individual. It's about what her win could represent.
Exactly. It's about the bigger picture.
Okay, so that's the potential upside if Harris wins. But on the flip side, what if Trump pulls off another win? What happens then?
Well, that's a whole other scenario.
Oh.
Our source suggests that Trump victory could further entrench his populist agenda within the Republican Party.
So it would be a doubling down on Trumpism?
Essentially. And it could potentially push away more moderate Republicans.
The ones who aren't as aligned with his style.
Right. And that could deepen the partisan divide in the country.
Which is already pretty deep.
It is. And that's a worrying trend for democracy. When we can't even agree on basic facts or principles, it's hard to have productive conversations and make progress on important issues.
So we're potentially looking at a major realignment of American politics, regardless of who wins. This isn't just about one election.
You hit the nail on the head. It's about the long game. It's about the future direction of the country.
And the stakes couldn't be higher.
They really couldn't.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways our listeners should keep in mind as we head towards 2024?
Well, first and foremost, stay informed.
Don't just rely on headlines and sound bites.
Exactly. Dig deeper. Challenge yourself to understand the nuances of the issues.
I like that. Don't be a passive consumer of information. Be an active participant.
Engage in thoughtful discussions with people who hold different views than your own.
Even if it's uncomfortable sometimes.
It's important to expose yourself to different perspectives. It helps you grow and learn. And finally, and most importantly, vote.
Your vote is your voice.
It's the most powerful tool you have to shape the future you want to see.
That's a great point. We can analyze and speculate all day long. But at the end of the day, it's the voters who will decide the outcome of this election.
So make your voice heard. Get out there and vote.
I love that. So as we approach 2024, remember that the future of American democracy depends on each of us.
Stay engaged, stay informed, and stay hopeful.
Stay engaged, stay informed, and stay hopeful. I love that. That's the perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 2024 election.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic, so stay tuned.